Happy to go when you are.
Hello, this is Dorothy Kuhn, and welcome to the SuccessibleSHE podcast. And with me today is Kieran Canisius, and she is the CEO of Zocket in the UK, not the UK, in Europe. So she'll tell you a little bit more about it, but at a high level, their company, Zocket, helps you as a business owner attract and engage and retain the best fit talent with an innovative white label platform that lives within your company's website. And it gives a great experience, not only for you as your company, but for all the candidates who come in and get to see the jobs that are really pertinent to them. So, Kieran, did I get that close?
Yeah, you got really close. Well done. Thanks.
Well, tell us a little bit more about you and about Zocket.
So I am actually was born in the States in Philadelphia and moved to the Netherlands when I was 18 and ended up studying here. And I fell in love. So my parents are actually Dutch. I fell in love with a Dutchman, had Dutch children. So I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, but I feel very lucky that I transplanted at such a young age. And it made me very focused on understanding behaviors and drivers from people and what motivates them, as that tends to also be driven by our culture and our background.
Oh, it does. It does. When I was a kid, my dad was a Navy man, and we lived in Britain for a while. So most of my life has been in the U.S. But I just really, my big takeaway from having childhood years in Britain, even though it's just 3, was that people, you take war and meanness out of the equation, and people find a way to do culture in a good way. So.
Yep.
It gave me the ability to be open to a whole variety of things that if I'd lived my life only in the US, I would have thought was just weird or something, So
And like I said, a lot of the things are being afraid of what we don't know.
Exactly.
So when Sabine and I've always worked in the pharmaceutical industry, actually. That's always been my background. And when Sabine, my business partner, and I set up our first company, we were very much attracted to having transplants, as we call ourselves. So those who transplant from one country to the other, because there is an inherent curiosity and desire to adopt and understand each other's culture, because you've had to do it at least once to survive. So you're much more open to others as well. So actually our company is filled with all different types of cultures and different languages. We have very few Dutch people in our Amsterdam office, actually. So we're really lucky that Amsterdam is such an international city.
It's a very international city. And, I spent my career in technology, and I did my undergraduate and a big chunk of my graduate work in science. And in those fields, we don't care where you're from or what you believe or anything like that. We care, can you play team and get it done?
Yep.
And have fun doing it.
Yep.
It makes a big
100%
difference.
critical.
Yeah. So in the context of women, the women who are listening to this podcast right now are women who want to be able to move up or get that new job. And sometimes we can be kind of in our way. We can trip ourselves with thinking that we have to be 100% to be able to move up. So I'm really curious what you see is really, because nobody's 100% for any new position. You're going to learn when you get there. So what do you see is the kind of characteristics that really make for somebody who can succeed in a place where they've got some of the skills, but not all of them?
Well, I think that if you look at most people in most positions, they don't have all of the skills they actually need to fill the full role. Most successful people actually identify what they're good at and find those roles that match them. And the pieces that they're not so good at, they make sure they have a team around them that can capture that or that can remind them to get better at it.
Uh-huh.
I believe in a philosophy that's a lot like sports teams. So when you get to a certain level, you don't have your goalie actually trying to make goals because he's really good at being a goalie. And you play to their strengths and you get better and better at your strengths. But we're always going to find roles and there's always going to be opportunities that you don't know how to do 100%.
Right.
In our platform, we've actually adopted some things because we were seeing certain behaviors that, and it wasn't only women, but it was in general, quite a lot of people were not applying to certain jobs that had a lower percentage match, not because it couldn't be the right match, but because they saw a specific number. So they assumed they weren't right for the job or the job was not right for them. But a lot of the times it has to do with how does it fit within your life? Are these skills that are the next step from your current skills?
Mm-hmm.
And if they are, then you can develop them further.
Yeah.
For example, I will never be someone who is going to be a maintainer, someone who is going to structure and make efficient processes.
Mm-hmm.
I like to find a problem, create a solution. I don't like the follow-on on turning the dials just slightly.
Right.
I have my team around me. Some of them are really good at that because I am someone who develops things. Don't put me in a company that just needs to stay to do the same thing we do every day. That's not where I'm good at. So for me, if I'm going to be put in a place that would maybe be a step up, a much CEO position of a much larger company, it should be a company that needs going through change. It should be a company that needs to toss around processes and really push for a difference. That's
Mm-hmm.
where I'll be entering. Not because I've run a company of 500 people before, but that's my strength. And therefore, the 500 people I can learn, but I know and I naturally have the ability to use these skills. If it's a company of 500 people that needs to stay doing the same thing for the next 5 years, there's someone else going to be better at that job than me. And not because I've not been a CEO for 500 people, but because it's not in my skill base at all.
Right.
Um,
It doesn't.
so
It doesn't juice you.
it's not,
And
and it doesn't get me excited. And
yeah.
it's not about taking the next step because you're ready for it.
Right.
It's about taking the next step because you're excited about it and because the opportunity is there.
Uh-huh.
And opportunity doesn't tend to come at the moment you are fully prepared and then you're not waiting for a guest for dinner. So they're not going to come at 7. It could come the day before, a year early, or 2 years late. It comes when it comes.
When it
And
comes.
you
Indeed.
have to grab onto it if you want it.
Yeah, yeah, and being able to know what we want is such a wonderful thing, and critical to a career and a life well lived. Because if you don't know what you want, you're not really clear on that, then you can just look for things that seem like a match without having some clear criteria for is it really going to achieve for you what you want it to achieve.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess I'm probably the wrong person to talk to about my life path. I don't know where I want to be in 10 years. I know where I am right now is exactly where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have visions for the next period of time, so the next phase of the growth of our company. Otherwise, you're not steering in a certain direction. But I've never been someone that said that's what my job is going to look like in 20 years.
Right.
Because there's too many different opportunities that come along, and they're important to review. They're
Mm-hmm.
important to keep your door open. I think that's what a lot of people do that I would recommend they do differently, is that they feel like I'm not ready to look around right now, therefore I won't engage, I will not look around, I will not network, I will not do all the things we should be doing all the time
Mm-hmm.
because we don't know when that opportunity will come.
Right.
And it's all about
Go ahead.
it's all about having the choice yourself to decide to take it or not.
Indeed. And if you don't avail
And it doesn't
yourself
matter what
of,
comes, you decide.
yeah, if you don't go out and network in some way, then you don't know what might be even better than what you have now.
Yeah.
So
And you may actually appreciate what you have if you look around. That too.
Indeed, and honestly, one of the things that I find is that in my career, so I'm make two mentions. One, in my career, a year and a half, 2 years, and I'm ready for fresh territory. I got to have something new. Some people like change faster. Some people like change slower. But whatever your kind of range is, know that if you stick around in a position for too long, like more than a couple of years, you are very highly at risk for being pigeonholed. Is my observation. Do you observe something similar?
For me, that depends on the company around that person. So if it's a company that's gone themselves through a lot of growth and change,
Mm-hmm.
they could have started as a head of QA or a
Mm-hmm.
QA manager. with 2 people, and then they are running a team of 30 at global level. They're still in QA. So yeah, you get pigeonholed in a certain specialty. I also know, I mean, the pharma industry is an industry that also where I sit within, which is really within the drug development process, which is clinical research mainly. It's this beautiful intersection of patient care, ethics, and a major desire to be part of the change of patient life. So there's a lot of people in this industry that have joined this industry because they've had a loved one get sick.
Yes.
And they want to make a difference. And this is a place where you can really see what the difference is as well. But it's also at the phase where there's a decision around money and commercial value. And that fights with each other. Well, for me, definitely, I see the challenge between the two. And there's people that are in maybe not the exact same function, but within a company in a similar function for many, many, many years. I think you become, for the outside world, so potential companies who are going to hire you, recruiters, they're afraid you're not going to be receptive. So they may not reach out to you. I don't know if they'll never see you in any other role, but they're afraid that you're not going to be able to be adaptable to another environment. That's, I think, a bigger risk than pigeonholed into a specific position. Because maybe not everything is upwards and upwards.
I wasn't thinking so much of a particular position, but for your QA story, be a member of the team for a year or two, and then be, a team lead for a year or two, and move up to manager or director, those kinds of things, so that you've got a path that you're on, as opposed to always being at that, entry level, which is the most likely level to get automated anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I will challenge you a little bit, is that I think that it's not just always about upwards.
Right.
Because I think that we get impregnated with this idea is we have to go up, 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 and otherwise we're not actually moving forward. When what we see, let's say, for example, in our platform, what we see within the millennial group is they have a big desire to go on the same level, but across very many different divisions to get experience. As a business owner, I think it's amazing.
It is.
Because once they're sitting in one seat, they know they have a perspective of what marketing, how they see that. They have a perspective of how logistics has, because they've been in those roles. They're hugely valuable. And they're not going up. They're going across the organization. So our platform focuses a lot on not just what's my job title, and therefore I can only look in a silo, but actually what matches with my work-life preferences, what matches with my personality, and what I'm looking for.
Very
and
good.
By matching that on a horizontal level, not just at the next level up, there's a lot more choice. There's a lot more things to get passionate about, instead of just, I need to get the manager and director position. Because the way organizations are set up, there are less and less of those jobs. It's not that you shouldn't go for them, and that's where your ambition lies. But if your ambition is not lying there, there's nothing wrong with looking around an organization and getting really excited about learning in the breadth rather than just looking up.
I agree 100%.
Good.
I have seen like the best CEOs or managing directors. Yeah, I've worked for some smaller companies and for some Fortune 50 companies, and it was amazing how those upper level mid-management folks would move from department to department to department, because in order to be even considered to move up to that next level in the executive ranks among them, they had to understand the breadth of the business. And people with a hunger for that level of change, the business is happy to throw them in the deep end, so to speak, and throw them a rock. And if they can swim in the deep end with a rock, they'll throw them another rock. And if they can't, they'll give them a hand.
And I think if you hear, so I'm not a big fan of labels, but our younger generation, which we at this moment like to call millennials, they're very clear about the desire to learn and to continue to grow.
Yeah.
I think that's something that, at least my generation and our generation, definitely also has. But we've been much more impregnated with this idea of also stability, security, ambition, managing a team as a status. We've been impregnated with a status that we need to achieve. But going from one division to another means you must learn. which is so exciting. And that
It
gives
is.
us as much energy as we can give a team or a role to say, but I know who is downstream of whatever I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that better because I was in that seat. And we're learning and we're getting better.
Uh-huh.
I think that at the end of the day, we all want to make an impact. It's something that we all talk about in different ways, but we want to know that we're doing a good job at our work and that we make a difference. And
Yes.
if we don't take care of that, sure, we go every day to work and we'll get our salary. It doesn't matter how much you get paid, it's still demoralizing. So if you're making an impact, and it doesn't matter if you are a manager, if you are a specialist, or if you go and take a horizontal move. I hear a lot of candidates and people saying, yeah, this was just a horizontal move, like they're apologizing to me. I always think, but that's no need. That's awesome. Go. Are you excited? Then that's the most important thing.
Yes.
Even if I think that we women, and I see it in the school play yard, I see it in the grocery store when I'm talking to other mothers. I work and I love it, and I get a
Mm-hmm.
lot of energy out of it, and I love also being a mom. My house tends to lose out of the priorities. My kids don't, my husband doesn't, and my work definitely doesn't,
Uh-huh.
because that makes me happy. But there's a lot of moms out there that feel like they have to apologize for not having that same desire as I do. But I always think, go with whatever is your own passion. It's your
Right.
energy. It's
Uh-huh.
your 100 pennies in a day. You spend it exactly how you want to.
Mhm.
And if you want to do it on career or house or children or wherever you want to get that energy
Mhm.
from, or nonprofit work, volunteering, do it and be happy and proud of it, because no one else is living your life. It's all
That's
your own.
uh-huh.
And no one else is going to change it, because they'll only change it for themselves and not for you. So it's
Oh.
about taking the steer into you. So sit actually in the driver's seat. And as soon as you feel like you're sitting in the passenger seat, you're in the wrong car. Get up and get in your own car.
Exactly, exactly. And that is easier said than done. There are these, as humans, we are like mostly the same, but there are these pattern level differences between the testosterone infused brain and the estrogen infused brain that gives us like twice as many serotonin receptors in our brains. And serotonin is something that is stimulated from outside us.
Yep.
And so that can drive approval-seeking behaviors that women tend to have more. And one of the things that I coach my clients on is that we can't escape our biology, but we can rise above it by having strategies around us and taking that mindset of, oh yes, I know this is true for me, that I'm going to be seeking other people's approval. So how can I get it in a place where it doesn't impact my career, where it fuels me and gives me enough juice so that I can go and be the total badass that I want to be in my career? Excuse my French.
But I think that's amazing that when you are very aware you want to be a badass in your career.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people out there that are not quite sure what they want to be in their career. So at the end of the day, then it means to follow the things that I always say that make you feel like you're flying, like you're combusting on the inside in a good way. Those are the things to grab onto and say, how can I do that more?
Uh-huh.
Because then we're getting our own approvals as much as we are getting it from someone else, and it's not easy.
It's
I am a mom with 2 kids. I own multiple companies. I've moved from the States to the Netherlands. There's all kinds of fun challenges that brings, and all kinds of assumptions and stereotypes and challenges that I overcome. But I do it for a very clear reason, is I get a lot of energy from what I do. And
wonderful.
it's worth the balance, the trade-off of the things that I do give up.
Uh-huh. I would love to hear a story about a presumption or a stereotype that you ran into and how you handled that.
Ooh, that's a question I haven't thought about. Well, actually, I've had what I think of right now. So it's really interesting. So about since January, we set up so we're a collective of brands. Sabine and I together set up multiple companies. So they are within our ownership with a management team. And we now have merged together multiple female-owned companies. So we are a management team of all women. And I was doing an interview a few weeks ago, and we said this before in our brand workshops. We were redoing our brand to be a one whole company. The man was saying, "Oh, so tell me more about this all female board." And I said laughingly to him, I'm assuming you don't ask all the men the same question when they're all men board, because that's quite the norm. And he laughed and he said, no, but that's why it's so interesting. And it was really, because what I get a lot, not just from him, not just at parties, is, oh, what must it be like to be in an all-female board? Because they assume it's all the negative things that are assumed about when women work together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so not. So it's really interesting. It gets a lot of attention, which I don't think it needs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's actually less strong than it would be if we had as many men as women. It just didn't happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
We were a band of entrepreneurial founders that see strengths together. We know we are stronger as a collective and we can achieve more together. But if we would have had a bunch of men doing the same thing, we probably would have formed that together.
Yeah.
So, but it's very interesting how the assumption is that we're either doing it for publicity, one, or it's actually a nest of vicious cats together, which neither are true. We didn't think about it beforehand. We actually were like, we have to make sure we don't talk about it too much. And when people do ask, it's like, no, it's actually, I think, much more direct than any other board that we interact with. But a lot of our clients are actually boards of life science companies, and we work with them intensely. There's a lot more vicious cat fighting there than there ever is in our team. It's much actually more typically male dominated, in that when we have a problem, we say what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
We call it, we don't have pink elephants. It's like, boom, that's an issue. Stop doing that. We can talk about emotion without it being a problem.
Right.
But it's very direct, and there is no rumors, whispers, and very limited politics. At least I haven't noticed any.
I
And it's
love it.
anti what everyone expects. And it's really interesting that what I never actually thought about is that how we got here. That is all of a sudden one of the first things people want to talk about is, you're 5 women? How does that work? It must be awful. Or with Sabina, you're with your best friend in the company, that must be awful. I've never had such harmonious relationships as I have in our management team.
Wonderful,
So, yeah,
wonderful.
that's a current one that I'm dealing with it. And it says a lot about other people. That's one thing that that as I grow older, so I'm now 41, and as I guess I lost that somewhere after 35, is that I'm so much less worried about, that doesn't work, I'm much less worried. So I'm a lot less worried about what other people think and all of those types of assumptions, because it says everything about them. It says everything about where their brain comes from and absolutely nothing about what I'm doing. And I don't have to take it on board as if it's a problem.
Yeah.
Because it's their issue, not mine. It only becomes my issue when I actually take it on. I'm like, oh, give your monkey to me, now it's my problem. No. So if I leave it there, it's fine. It's their assumption.
Indeed. And that is some really clear boundaries thing that is something that's always a work in progress. You'll discover oftentimes, or we'll discover a boundary when somebody has kind of broached it and or breached it, I guess is the proper term. But one of the things that I find is that human brains, in addition to what we mentioned earlier, a due presumption for us from the social stories and our own experience that just permeate our culture, and that whole negative presumption that you described is continually running in our culture. That and the way that in my body of work that we help women get past that is to really let people know that every brain does that. You can imagine how exhausting it would be if somebody new is in front of you and your brain didn't serve up everything about a person who looks like that, acts like that, shows up like that. It's that first.
It's our software.
It's your brain does that automatically. And so the separation that's really important is to A, know that your brain does that in service to you, and B, to know that even a decent strategy is not a fit for every situation, and to be open for something that's even better.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you say that, because you're talking a lot about unconscious bias,
Yes.
which I talk a lot about from a Zocket point of view,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a lot of what you're talking about. We have no control over. We
Right.
actually don't even realize it's happening. We consciously believe that we are unbiased, that we are not sexist, prejudiced, Asian.
That is so
All
not
those things.
true.
If we are all of that as
Uh-huh.
the culmination of our whole lives.
Yeah.
And that, of course, starts from childhood, but it's actually from in a job perspective, we relate everything back to our expectations of who did this job in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore hire that person again. Even when we know the facts are wrong,
Mm-hmm.
we know that we need a more diverse team. We know that we need to have different ages, different genders, different nationalities. We
Mm-hmm.
know the facts, and
Mm-hmm.
still our unconscious bias proves to us that we should be hiring the mini me or the same person as the last time,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I think that we have a big challenge ahead of us, and why with the technology we've built,
Mm-hmm.
what we're trying to do is to retrain the unconscious bias.
Ah,
So if
good.
you see candidates, so you have a job open. So let's take the seat not of a candidate where I want to look around and choose the right company, but I'm a company looking to hire, and I'm a manager of the IT department, and I know that I had George, and George was 30 years old and graduated from a good university, etc. Was married, had 2 kids, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I got along with George, but George got headhunted away. So now I'm looking for new candidates. Even though I know that that someone with an older age or younger age, a different gender, etc., will be better, my unconscious bias is going to be screaming at me, find George.
Fine,
And I
George.
will
Yeah.
find reasons for all of these people,
Mm-hmm.
everyone I see a CV from, and then I can choose, I see on a name whether they are the same ethnical background as George. So
Right.
I will say, oh, look, this person didn't go to the right university, off the list. And I will be convinced that that's true, that that's
Yeah.
why I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
If I see a picture, if I see that it's a female name, if I see all of these things, without me knowing, my unconscious bias is going, not George, not George, not George,
Uh-huh.
not George. Until I
Yes.
find a George, I'm like, this is my perfect candidate. So
Yeah.
what we're trying to do with technology is actually to blind all candidates, both current employees and new applicants, to
Wow.
show skills, work-life balance,
Uh-huh.
personality match, and with on a blinded way, actually then present candidates only after that there's already the match and they've shortlisted, only then to be able to see who they are.
Right.
So what you're doing is when they have to interact face to face, that's when you actually reveal all of the not George factors. But
Right.
by that time, you've already trained the unconscious bias to review these CVs without knowing all of the factors that will make me go, not George.
Not George. I
um,
love this.
so
I
you
love this.
train, if I have 5 candidates that I liked all of them, and
Uh-huh.
then all of a sudden I realized that 3 were women and none of them were named George, I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. And I'm teaching my unconscious bias to go, okay, maybe not George, but it's going to be Georgette.
Mm-hmm.
I'm adjusting that picture slightly so that and
Yes.
hopefully in the
And
future, need
those
to be
little
less
tweaks
reliant
add
on
up.
technology. They do.
They do.
Because just telling everyone that showing them the numbers, showing them the profit is not making people shift. What I see now is that
Right.
I've had my first conversation with a UK CEO of a very large publicly traded company who said I've been required now by my major investors to have a diverse supervisory board, which for him was 2019. It's the first time he was told this.
Yeah. And it's a burden for him because he doesn't think it can
Well,
work.
there's a large, because we're actually developing our own female board member program, because there's just not enough women that have been exposed to this
Mm-hmm.
area of leadership,
Mm-hmm.
because these opportunities were not out there, because we were
Right.
hiring mini-me's upon mini-me's upon mini-me's.
Mm-hmm.
Our
Mm-hmm.
unconscious bias was screeching.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it's now a big step. So there's a
Yes.
lot of big steps that need to be taken with a very small pool of women, and we need to grow that. So
Yes.
we've decided we want to help grow that. But our technology is also focused very much on the everyday, because all of the everyday is what adds up from this really difficult boulder we're trying to pull up a hill to that becoming smaller and the hill getting less steep, because we're all all of us.
Mm-hmm.
We do it too. It's as women, we do exactly the same thing. We are not without judgment here. It's
Right.
women and men. Every human being, we are all need unconscious bias, and it runs our minds.
It does.
So, yeah, we're trying to get rid of that or push it.
And
Push
you know,
the
it's
needle.
good to have a strategy to get rid of it. I applaud you. This, I mean, you're the first agency of your kind that I have ever heard had a strategy for helping get rid of that, and it's extraordinary. And I'll tell an unconscious bias story on myself. You know, I think of myself as a progressive, open-minded. You know, I love people for their character and all this kind of stuff. So there was a shooting. It was, a black person and a white person. This is a few years ago, and the white person had shot and killed a completely innocent black person, which is tragic and horrible. About a week later, I'm driving into my new neighborhood where I now live, and not even having thought about what a white enclave I had bought a house in. Not even, in the busyness of, oops. Sorry about that. I didn't realize I had a timer on. Not even realizing, in the busyness of moving and everything, what a white enclave I had moved into. And I'm going down, driving into my neighborhood, and I see this black man walking down the street. And all of a sudden, my went off. Now, that crime that had just happened and made national news the week before had been, it had been the white man that was the perpetrator of the murder in this case. So there was no rational reason for that to happen. But, I'm at least self-aware enough to be able to catch myself and say, take a breath, Dorothy. What's going on here? Observe what it is. Well, this is a nicely dressed man talking on a cell phone, walking down the street. I walk in my neighborhood all the time. Is there anything wrong with this scenario? No. So then I could calm myself down. And being able to catch ourselves is wonderful. But having a system set up so you don't even have to do that is brilliant. I love what you do.
Well, I don't even think that we can actually do it. I honestly believe that we have such strong unconscious biases that our conscious thought will not be able to change it. And we will continue to convince ourselves that the way we've always done it is the right way.
Right.
Technology is meant there actually, because I believe that technology needs to be used to increase human impact.
That's right.
Technology does not have empathy. Technology does not have a good feeling about each other, which yes, we do need to have at some point to work together or to want to tackle challenges together. If I intrinsically don't like you, I really shouldn't work with you, and vice versa. We probably feel exactly the same way. And computer is not going to be able to tell us that. Technology is not going to be able to tell us that. Technology doesn't have empathy. We can code it to do a whole bunch of things, but we cannot code it to be human. Right. So we should be using technology to make us more powerful. So if we can use technology to help us speed along evolution, because that's all we're trying to do. That's what we really believe in. And it's really interesting you mentioned that, is that about seeing someone that perhaps in your unconscious mind is different than the rest. Is we do a lot of candidate experience assessments, because most companies don't realize what they're putting out there is so incredibly biased. They don't actually think about it. And I always use this expression, and my team thinks it's funny, so I'm going to tell it to you too. It's like, have you ever walked into someone else's house and you smell their house? It's not bad, but you always smell the different houses or office buildings you walk in. It's distinct. It has a smell. It's not disgusting. It's just a smell. You walk into your own house and it doesn't smell like anything.
Right.
You don't smell it.
Do it.
Yes. So with candidate experience assessment, what we do is actually the beginning of really evolving your company to be able to deal with this unconscious bias and to be stronger, attracting a more diverse workforce is what we're actually putting out there. So we utilize a team that has not interacted with the company at all and research all of the online messaging, what's going out there, what's not just from who do we think you're trying to attract from an employer brand. Where are your biases? Is in your job texts? Are there biases in the images and the videos? through
Right.
all of the social media channels. What are you putting out there?
Right.
And therefore, who is going to feel comfortable in your enclave?
Indeed.
Who's going to feel like
Images,
they belong
language.
there and who is
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
And it's about so many different elements. So we spend a lot of time making sure that the enclave they are putting out there matches who is actually going to feel successful and comfortable inside.
Right.
Because we as companies spend so much money on attracting talent. I said it to you earlier. We spend at least 80 to 85% on attracting new talent of our HR budget, of our recruitment budget. But we don't spend nearly enough on keeping the people in. So if in the first place we are spending time with people who actually feel they're going to be comfortable inside,
Mm-hmm.
so making sure that virtually it's accessible, making sure that the virtual world actually is the real world. There's so many job sites that are super cool and sexy, and you want to be part of that company just because they're so hip. But their company's nothing like that. I was at one of the large athletic companies a year ago, and their website, jobs website, they've got people playing basketball at lunch, and it's all about sports. I was there for a whole day. No one played basketball in their basketball court in the middle. Everyone sat with these things on, and they did not look sporty. So
Yeah.
I would think that I don't fit there. If I don't like basketball, I don't want to play sports, I would not
Right.
apply. So it's really important that the image of the enclave, to use your example, actually matches the reality of the company, because it's not that you have to look sexy, pretty, or hot. You have to look like the way your company is,
Yeah.
or a slight deviation of it in the direction you want to go,
Right.
because it's so sad to spend time and money and pull someone out of a job they've been working a lot of the times,
Mm-hmm.
and then find that it's not the right match and they have to go. It's
Right.
such a waste of effort. It's destruction of your company.
All the way around.
And we spend a lot more money. I think it's about, on average, about 17% more salary on the employees that come from outside to fill a job.
Mm-hmm.
They generally have lower evaluation scores because we have higher expectations of them.
Right.
So we are spending way too much time to just attract on the outside, when we could also be ensuring we are pushing down our unconscious bias as hiring manager,
Mm-hmm.
reviewing all candidates from all different departments
Mm-hmm.
because of their match and the basis of personality and their skills and their work-life balance. Because if they want to spend 3 days a week here and 2 days a week at home, and it doesn't matter for your project, and within your own siloed team, there's no one else, who better to get is someone from a different department that you can bring over.
Yes.
But if your unconscious bias is saying it has to be George with that exact experience, then you'll never look further.
Yeah.
So it's really about using that technology to ensure that you're pushing down your unconscious bias,
Yes.
and at the same time that you're actually showing to the outside world what your inside world is really like, and without any of the biases that we accidentally put everywhere.
Yeah, like putting on the a good face that really isn't yours, taking off the mask. Yeah,
Yep.
that is so important, and you're exactly right. You know, our unconscious biases are unconscious to us. They're part of our belief system, and facts alone, facts that do not comport with your belief system, they never make it in. It's like they bounce off.
Oh, really? That's horrible. Like, what is it? The fact about there are more Johns and Davids. I think there was more Johns as CEOs in 2017 than all of the women CEOs in the world.
More. The name John?
More CEOs named John or George or Paul, one of those three,
one of those
than
three.
all of the women CEOs in the world. Like, that's shocking.
Yeah.
It's still not making anyone hire another female CEO, because it doesn't affect, we're not believing that Nancy is going to be a better CEO than Paul is, or than John is, because our unconscious bias is saying it should be the same one that was really great last time. So we have so many leaps to take, and some very dramatic ones as humans, which means ignoring unconscious bias. But we then to get into the next challenge, which I haven't figured out how to fix yet. That's the confirmation bias. So when we are assuming that someone's not going to be the right match, or someone is going to fail, we only look for things that prove what we already decided in the past. So
confirmation bias, right?
Confirmation bias, yeah. And our confirmation bias pushes our unconscious bias to higher minimes.
Yes.
So we are confirming our previous assumptions, but it works negatively. For example, if I wanted a George and I end up hiring because of the facts and I am influenced by my environment and I think, nope, I'm going to take a step and I'm going to hire Anna, but I'm going to continuously look for things that Anna's not doing right. I'm going to work in my own confirmation bias of proving to myself that I was right in the first place. I haven't figured that piece out yet.
Yeah.
The first part of the unconscious, the confirmation bias, we're trying to fix with our technology. But the actual human experience, that's a different one.
That is different. And that's a big place where, having worked with men throughout my career, predominantly men, I learned the skill set to be able to like challenge them back and show up in a way that, I was still being my womanly self, but I wasn't going to take any guff from those guys. So, if I had we had a big team meeting with our customer one time. I was in a military systems organization at that time. We were up-leveling algorithms, which is like high-level mathematics, that kind of fun stuff. I'm, real geek at heart here. And
yes, I love the nerds.
I love the nerds.
And I love them.
It's great. Now, so the bird colonel comes in to, with his phalanx of lieutenant colonels to give us the, a twice a year review. So he's there, and I'm third up out of 10 people on the team who are presenting. Now, I don't know if this colonel or anybody on his team has degrees in higher mathematics. Even if they did, would they be able to dive deep into 10 people's work for months? No. They've got to have a proxy for being able to understand, is this work solid, which is what their duty, not just to the program, but to the safety and security of citizens in the United States, is really meant to do. That's what that program was meant to accomplish. And so, I'm like 2 minutes into, I'm third up, I'm 2 minutes into my talk. This is on a radar system. Radar depends on the range from, the radar to the target. And all of a sudden he just interrupts what I said. It says, what does he say? He says, we don't believe the range, don't you? I had no idea what to say. I was not expecting any kind of a challenge like that. I was expecting to just, tell him what we got. I looked at that man hard, and I knew two things in that moment. One, I could not disrespect an officer in the U.S. military and my customer. And the second thing was I could not look weak in front of my team. So I just had to take a deep breath because I had no earthly idea what to do. And on that second deep breath, I thought, I've got range in my data. So I just turned around, pointed at the board, said, I've got range in my data, and went on like nothing had happened. And, the rest of the meeting went on. Everything went well. Everything was smooth. He and his team left. Our team did our postmortem. As we were walking out the door, every one of my colleagues, all of whom were guys, were like slapping me on the back. Kuhn, you did it. That guy has been a jerk to us for years. You did it. People love it when you stand up and show your spine. And those are things that, did I ever get trained to do that? I don't know where that came from. But in sports teams, we tend to learn that.
Yep.
Yeah. And there are all kinds of places to learn it. So
we also need to, that we teach it to each other. We teach it by our own behavior as leaders, as managers. We teach good and bad behavior to everyone around us, not just children, not just employees, but we also teach others how we want to be treated.
Exactly.
So it's a continuous thing, is that it's the amazing feeling, like I said earlier, is that feeling of I'm flying, that internal fire that you get in your belly, and that feeling that you must have had after that, where you decided to deal with this man in this way, is like, okay, whatever. Yeah, I'm going to move on with my presentation.
That's right. Not pulling me off track.
That I want more. I can do that.
I can do
that.
I
want more.
Yeah. Indeed, indeed. So it's just, this has been absolutely incredible, Kieran. Kieran, I am just thrilled with the work that you all are doing, and I can't wait to share this.
Good.
So tell people where it is that they can find you. Uh, where can they
Well,
find
we
you?
would love to hear from everyone who wants to find us. So you can find all of our information at www.zocket.me. Zocket is ZOCKET.me. You can reach us in all different kinds of ways there. We talk a lot about our philosophy, about the way we approach things.
Mhm.
We've got a great blog area, and you can get in touch with us and ask any questions you'd like. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, I am just thrilled. This has been just an amazing conversation. And is there anything else that that our listeners and our watchers need to know?
Um, Anything else? Follow your fire. Keep going and doing the things that you really makes you excited. Zocket came from that same desire, not because there was a paycheck or a cash cow hanging on it, but because we believed that things were not happening the right way. And there had to be a better way to do things. So we started, ladies who are from science
Mhm.
into tech. It wasn't the most logical step, but it's follow that fire, follow that feeling of, I want to know more about that. I want to challenge myself that way. In whatever way you want to do that, follow that fire. That
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, everybody, you can go to zocket.me and find out more if you're looking for a wonderful new position anywhere on planet Earth. Kieran and her team have probably got something that will be a good fit for you, and they're setting you up for success. So go for it. It does not have to be that mid-management is the place where diversity goes to die, is the common expression these days in the U.S. You can make it work for you when you've got a great team that really knows how to pull back the curtain and set you up to be on a level playing field. And isn't that what everybody deserves?
Yes, they do.
Wonderful, Kieran. I'm just so breathy now that I can't even speak. So, Kieran, uh, it's been a pleasure. I'm so delighted to meet you, and thank you for sharing the magic that you all bring. It's really wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye.